Graham, I wondered if you might address the ability of public Scientologists to restrict what they see or read at the behest of other Scientologists in the organization, and how their standards in real life aren't applied to their religion. This is true of many believers, where standards of evidence for taking medicines, buying stocks, or how safe a car is aren't applied to the most important spiritual questions like, is there a God? I can't understand how Scientologists can run successful businesses and interact with Joe Public and the world at large, yet still remain in a bubble. How can they not compare the success of their own business marketing campaigns to the sheer lack of outward advertising by Scientology? If I were a business owner, I'd be expecting enormous results from millions of dollars worth of fundraising to disseminate. I'd expect to see Scientology splashed across bus shelters and taxis and park benches in my daily life. They must know the costs of their own marketing, how many people they can reach with X number of leaflets, what the likely return is. Surely they must see Scientology as, at best, poorly performing in this regard. The sums are so huge that I can only think about my own charity fundraising, where just getting people to give a few pounds can be difficult enough. Yet millions of dollars are being put through these organizations each year to no benefit and no visible dissemination. If the same person who put their hand in their pocket to donate to Scientology was to pay the same amount of money to a marketing company to advertise their shop, they would be apoplectic if they didn't see more people in the door. Yet Scientologists see this every time they take a course. No more people, but they still need you to mortgage your house for more dissemination. Well, it was frustration about just this exact thing that actually got me questioning quite a bit. And when I was still in the C organization, got me interested in why we weren't promoting more or doing more with the internet. And that, and also wondering, if we were, why weren't we promoting more? Why weren't we more out there and that sort of thing? And it always came down to we didn't have the money for it. See, Scientologists generally are not aware of the same amount of information that you and I are out here in the real world, because they're in that bubble world. Now, to address the first part of your question, getting back to that, the reason for that is because they choose to be. Ignorance of that kind is a choice. And they make that choice because they're told to, and because they want to believe the best of their church or their religious organization, right? And this is not just a phenomena that occurs in Scientology. I don't know, look at Ben Carson, right? Here's a guy who ran for president, right, recently. Brilliant brain surgeon, apparently, separated conjoined twins. It takes skill and intelligence to be able to do something like that. And yet the guy has pictures in his house of him with Jesus, and said that that he thought that the Egyptian pyramids were storehouses for grain, which is, completely one of the most ignorant things you could possibly say about the pyramids in Egypt. So it is possible to be, genius in one part of a person's life and complete moron in another part of their life. These two things they're not mutually exclusive. And when it comes to rational thought, especially when it comes to religion, rationality just flies out the window, and anybody who has religious beliefs, I think if they're being honest, would have to acknowledge that those beliefs are not based on logically reasoned out, evidence-based thought processes, right? It wasn't critical thinking that landed most people into having faith. Faith is the opposite of that. It's belief without evidence. It's knowing without having any cause or basis for knowing, except maybe an emotional attachment or because it makes you feel good. And that's not evidence. That's not fact-based reasoning. So that's one reason why people believe in Scientology and grant it so much power in their life, is because they have that faith that it's doing a good thing. The leader of Scientology comes up on stage numerous times a year, shows them success stories, shows them politicians, cultural leaders, civic leaders talking favorably about Scientology. Whether those leaders in reality actually realize what they're doing or saying is a whole other thing. But what the perception here is everything. And what the Scientologists perceive, what they think they're seeing in these events, are, packed course rooms, full ideal organizations that are brimming over with new people coming in. And then they look at their local church area that's not that way, and they think that it's just there. It's just in my place, in my city, that it's not doing well. And they look at the number of staff and they go, yeah, these staff, they work hard, but, there's not enough of them. And if we could just get Scientology going here, and that actually feeds into them giving more money, because then the sales guys and the fundraisers come around and they go, boy, it's not happening here. You guys got to make it happen. We got to get dissemination going. We got to get promotion going. So give us more money, because, the church here doesn't have any money to do it. And they don't talk about the millions and billions of dollars that are in the coffers of the Church of Scientology. When Debbie Cook put out her email a few years ago and said that the IAS had like $1 billion in its liquid asset, slush fund, Scientologists were not aware of that. They were like, what? $1 billion, right? And and it took a couple people were like a little apoplectic about that. They were like, what's $1 billion? How do we have that much money? Because generally speaking, the way it's presented to the parishioners, Scientology never has enough money. Certainly as a staff member and a Sea Org member, I never had any evidence that the Church of Scientology had billions of dollars at its disposal, because we were broke all the time. It's one of the big jokes of churches, of the Church of Scientology, is, they can barely afford toilet paper. And so when I say, I've said numerous times, the money goes up, it doesn't come down. So they don't see that money, right? Now, as far as the dissemination and the promotion efforts, here's the thing. Barely enough promotion is done to keep them satisfied that something's happening, and they get all excited about it. For example, the Super Bowl ads. Every year, the chairman of the board makes sure that there are Scientology ads in the Super Bowl, right? And they do it through, pretty cheap advertising, because they do it locally. They don't contract with the NFL and do it internationally. So it's only those advertisements only show in key locations where they've set up that advertising. Generally, where there is a Church of Scientology is where they do that, and they do that ostensibly to get new people to come into Scientology, but nobody's coming into Scientology from those ads. The local Scientologists see those ads and they just, go orgasmic on it, right? They tweet, oh, wow, did you see the ad? And they talk about it in the church. Did you see the Super Bowl ad? There's going to be a Super Bowl ad, And so when they see any kind of advertising or something like that, and there are efforts made by Scientology on Google and through billboards and various things in different locations to do spot promotion of Scientology, and they just enough of it to keep the Scientologists giving more money, right? It's kind of like a little balancing act that they play with that, because they want the Scientologists to keep giving money, but they don't want to spend money on advertising, because, like I've said, that's not David Miscavige's game. He doesn't care about new Scientologists coming in droves and droves and droves, which is something L. Ron Hubbard did care about. David Miscavige, he could care less, right? As long as the whales, the big donors, are giving money and the rest of the fish are coughing up their dough, he's fine. He's set for life. If no more pennies were paid into Scientology, David Miscavige would be set for the rest of his life. So what does he care about new Scientologists, right? So that's I think that's the kind of the picture there. And, and as far as why Scientologists put up with it, it's because they have faith. Because they really do believe in David Miscavige. They really do think that he's doing the best that can possibly be done. And they have a vested interest in having that faith, because they've invested so much time and so much money into Scientology. They don't want to see its errors and its bad spots and where it's falling down. And that's becoming harder and harder as the years go on here, which is why there's less and less people in Scientology, because a lot of people do see this stuff and they leave. So that's what's going on.